Hello my friends, today we are gonna create a small notification app using React and Socket.io. We are gonna be using two different users, and when we like, comment or share any post, it's gonna send an instant notification to the owner of the post. It's super efficient, no DB, no data consuming, it's a real-time TCP connection between the client and server. Okay, I hope you will like it. If you are ready, let's get started. This video is sponsored by Stream. Stream helps you to build scalable chat or activity feeds for your application. Stream takes care of the security, hosting and scaling, so you can focus on functionality and build high-quality apps. You can create a fully customizable chat for your application using Stream SDKs. Check out their SDKs for React, React Native, Flutter, and native Android and iOS. So check the link in the description below for more information and a demo. Okay guys, I created a folder here which is client, and inside I just created my React app. I'm not gonna do this from scratch. What we have here, let's see. We have only app.js. As you can see, it says only hello world. And I added here our images. We have some SVG files here, comments, heart, which is like button, and other notification icons. Okay, let's open the application. As you can see, we have only this text. So what we are gonna do is creating here a container, and it's gonna include our posts. Each post will have username, avatar, and post image, but I'm not gonna copy and paste anything. I just want to do this from scratch, that because when you watch any tutorials, it's hard to follow when the instructor copy and paste codes. So let's do this from scratch. It's not that complex. So what I'm going to do is giving here a class name. It's going to be container. And inside, before creating our postcards, let's create login page. Of course, you can create here pages folder. But as I said, it's just a small application, we don't need that. I'm just gonna create here, let's say, login div. It's gonna be only input and button. Let's say placeholder, username, and a button. And I will say login. So let's give some styles. To do that, I'm gonna create a CSS file. So let's say new file and app.css. Okay, we can use this file. I will say import and app.css. So let's see first what we have. As you can see, we have input and login button. We don't need any password input, that because we are not going to connect any DB. It's just a demonstration. Okay, firstly, I'm gonna center everything. To do that, we can use body tag, and let's say height 100 VH is gonna be full screen body, and I'm gonna center everything. Align item center and justify content center. Like that. What about login container? Let's write here login, and let's say height 50 VH. Again, I'm gonna use display flex, but this time flex direction will be column. I want this login button here. So let's say display flex, flex direction, column, like that. And I can center everything again, align item center and justify content center, like that. Okay, awesome. So let's take care of this input quickly. With 50%, I will give some padding, and I will give margin between this input and button. So it's gonna be 20 pixels, something like that. Let's take care of our button with 50% again, maybe around 60. It's not that important. So let's say background color, maybe this color. It looks nice. Of course, I'm gonna change text color, white. Okay. Let's delete this border, none, and I will give some border radius, let's say 5 pixels. Okay, nice, but I forgot cursor pointer. Okay, it's really minimal. We don't need anything else, so we can handle our username. Firstly, I'm gonna create a new state hook for this input. When we write here something, it's gonna change our state. And I'm gonna create one more state, and it's gonna update our user. When I click this button, it's gonna update the actual user. So let's do that. I will say const username set username. And it's gonna be use state hook. And at the beginning, it's gonna be just empty string. And I'm gonna create one more. It's gonna be my user. Let's say set user, and it will be empty string again. So what I'm gonna do is writing here on change event. And whenever we change this input, it's gonna update our username. To do that, we can use event here, and I will say set username, and it's gonna be event target and value. Like that. I can close here, by the way. And when I click this button, I will say on click, it's gonna update our user. Set user, and it's gonna be username. Whatever we enter inside this username. Let's try. I'm gonna write here console log and user. I forgot here function, I think. Yes, it should be function, of course. Like that. Let's see again. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna open my console. And let's write here something. And I will log in. As you can see, John is here. And here is empty, that because it's an empty string at the beginning. Okay, perfect. So after this login process, I can display something else instead of login. So we are gonna have postcards, which includes username, avatar, and post image. And additionally, we are gonna have a navbar. It's gonna include our logo and notification icons. Let's do that. I'm gonna create here components folder. Components. And first one will be navbar. Let's create one more. It's gonna be card or postcard. Anyway, let's create here our function first. JSX file and CSS file. Navbar CSS. Okay, let's create function first. And I'm gonna write here just navbar, nothing else. Let's give some class name. And let's import our CSS file. Import navbar.css. Okay, I will do the same thing for card quickly. Card.js or JSX and card.css. Let's create function. It's gonna be card, and I will just write here card. Let's import CSS file. Okay, right now I can use these two components here. What I'm gonna do is writing here a condition. I will say, if there is a user, show me navbar and card component. If there is no, show me login page. So I can cover here, like that. And here, firstly, I'm gonna open React fragments here and close again. And inside, I will say navbar component. As you can see, it's here, and card component. And it's here again. Okay, as you can see, it shows navbar and card, that because we have user. But if I refresh, we are gonna see this login page first. If I write here something and login, it's the same thing. But when we use socket.io, we are gonna split this browser. We are gonna open up new one, So it might be a little bit confusing that because we are not going to able to know which user we are using. To prevent this, let's write here after cart maybe username span. I will say username, and it's going to be our username, which is user. Let's take care of this. App CSS. I can write here. I will say font weight bold, and color will be again this green color, sea green. And I will say position absolute. That because I want to see this around here. So if I say top 15 maybe and right 15 or 20, it's gonna be like that. Before this navbar and cart, firstly let's take care of our container div here. I'm gonna open app CSS again, and after body I can say container. It's gonna be 50 VH for example. I know it's weird, but it's not important. Don't worry about that. It's just an example. So I will give some border. It's gonna be this color again. I will say 0.5 pixels and solid. It really doesn't matter. Okay, something like that. You can change the width. So I can close this app and CSS file. And I will close this cart also. I'm just gonna open my navbar. Okay, firstly we are gonna have two main items. First one will be our logo here, and second one will be icons container. So let's do that. I can directly create here my logo, and it's gonna be just span. I'm not gonna add any image. I will just say logo and Lama app. And after that, let's create icons container. And each icon is gonna include one icon and one notification counter here. To do that, I will create one more container, and let's write here our first SVG. I will say class name icon image. We are gonna add our image later, but first I will write here counter, and let's say 2. It's just an example. Okay, let's add our first image. Import notification from, I'm gonna choose image folder here, and notification SVG, if I remember correctly. Yes, it's here. SVG. Okay, let's use it here like that, and let's see. Okay, we can see it that because it's white also, but as you can see, it's somewhere here. I will come here. Height will be 50 pixels and background color will be light sea green. Let's change this image size and we can see properly. With 20, height 20. Let's see. Okay, it's here. Perfect. But I wanna see all elements horizontal. It's really easy. You already know, I think. As you can see, it's here. I can center them, align item center, but I will say justify content, space around. So basically it's gonna give some space here at the beginning and ending. Let's change this text color. It's gonna be white. So what about this logo? Font weight bold, font size 20. Okay, so if I create one more icon here, actually two more, it's gonna be message, and it's gonna be settings. Let's import them also. Actually, I can copy and paste right now. There is nothing important. And it's gonna be like that. As you can see, it's not horizontal. Let's change it. Icons and display flex. Of course, we are gonna change these counters. They are gonna be position absolute, so we can see them around here, top right of each icons. Let's write here icon and margin left 10 pixels, so we can separate them a little bit. And I will say cursor pointer, like that. Okay, so let's take care of this counter. I'm gonna give some width and height is gonna be 5 pixels. That's because I'm gonna give some background color and it's gonna be red. Let's make it circle and I'm gonna give some padding, let's say 5 again. Okay, like that. I can center this number and I can maybe decrease font size. Let's do that. Font size 12 and display flags, align item center, justify content center. Like that. Awesome. So let's change this position. Position absolute. And remember, if you are using absolute positioning, the parent should be position relative. Okay. Top will be -5. Right will be -5. Like that. Maybe more space here. Okay, it's better, I think. Okay, right now we can create our postcards. I will close them and open up card CSS and JSX. Like that, I can split them. Okay. As I said, we are going to have 2 cards, so we can use dummy data here. I will say data, and inside this data, I'm going to create 2 posts. As you can see, it has ID, username, full name, user avatar, and post image. We are going to have just 2. Of course, you can increase them also. It's not the important part. So I can use that. We are going to take them as props. So it's going to be post. And inside, firstly, let's create info container. It's going to include avatar, let's say user image. And it's going to be post.userImage. And after that, it's going to be span. And I will say post.fullName. And after this div, post image, and post.postImage. And finally, we are going to add our icons. So I will say maybe interaction. We will have 4 icons. Image and card icon. This time we can use our SVGs. Actually, I can just copy and paste them. I don't want to waste time. I just imported them from image folder. Let's use them. First one will be heart. Here. And comment, share, and info. Comment, share, info. Okay. By the way, let's close here. Let's try. But of course, we should pass our props first. So I'm going to go to app.js and I'm going to pass my data items. So let's import that. Import data from source and data. Remember what we have? Okay, it's not data, it's posts. It's going to be posts from data. So we can use those cards. I can map through these posts and show my cards. So I can write here posts.map, and for each post, show me this card. Of course, we should indicate here our key. It's going to be a unique key, which is post.id. And I'm going to pass my prop. post equals post. Let's see. I will log in and they are here. Awesome. It's post image, our icons, Monica's 10, and there is one more, but we can't see that because our images are really big. So we can give some styles. I can close here and open up card component. Sorry, CSS. I can split here. And firstly, I'm gonna give some height for this card component. 280. And for the info, it's gonna be display flex, that because we are gonna see this avatar and username in the same row here. And I can center them, align item center. I will give some padding, maybe font weight will be a little bit bolder and font size will be a little bit smaller. I should change user image and post image first. User image is gonna be 30%. It's gonna be circle. And I will say object with cover. So we can see our image better. And finally, I'm gonna give some margin between this image and username. Like that. So I will say post image width will be 100%. It's gonna include all container and height will be 200 pixels. Like that. If I say object width and cover, as you can see, it's covering this container. By the way, why it's not circle? Oh, it's gonna be height, of course. Okay, perfect. Let's change this container. It was interaction. Of course, display flags, align item center. And I'm gonna give some padding, 5 pixels. 5 pixels from top and bottom, but from left and right it's gonna be 10 pixels. For card icons, width 16, height 16, and I will say cursor pointer, and finally give some space between each other. Margin right 10 pixels. Oops, what I've done. Margin right 10. Okay, nice. But I can split this icon. It can be here. So let's give one more class here. It's gonna be info icon. So I can use it here. And I will say position absolute. And right will be 0. It's gonna be here. But I didn't save here. Okay, as you can see, it's not here, it's here. That because we didn't give position relative for parent. Let's come here and position relative. And right now it's here. Maybe I can decrease this width and height. Okay, perfect. So what I'm gonna do is sending notification for users. For example, I'm John, and when I like Monica's post, she's gonna receive a notification here. This counter will be 1, of course, at the beginning. They are gonna be 0. When I like this post, it's gonna be 1. And when she clicks this button, she's gonna see some notification here. John Keller liked your post. But before, let's make it fancier. When I click this button, I wanna see it red. To do that, I can close here. And I'm gonna create use state hook. It's gonna be const liked and set liked. And it's gonna be use state hook. At the beginning, it will be false. And I'm gonna write here a condition for this heart icon. I will say if liked show me different image. If it's not, show me this image. So I can copy this and paste here, but this time it's gonna be hard field. As you can see, it's still same. If I make this true, as you can see, it's filled. So I can make this dynamic. Let's make this false again. And let's create here an on-click event. It's gonna be handle notification maybe. Let's create this function. Const handle notification. And I'm gonna set this liked, and it will be true. I'm clicking. As you can see, it's red right now. Okay, perfect. So everything is ready to send our notifications. Let's create socket.io server. So let's go to socket.io. We are gonna be using the last version of this socket.io. So let's open up documentation. As you can see, socket.io is a library that enables real-time bidirectional. That means we can create our socket server and we can send data to client side, which is our React app. And also we can send data from React app to socket server. An event-based communication between the browser and server. This library is awesome that because we are not actually fetching any data from any DB, any server. We are just using WebSockets, and it's just like sending pings. It's not consuming your server sources or client sources. It's really lightweight, and you are gonna see how easy to use it. So basically, we are gonna have one server and client side. Firstly, let's create our socket server. I will click installation. And as you can see, we should install this package first. I'm gonna create new folder. Let's close here. And I will say socket. And let's open up terminal. And I will say cd socket. And firstly, I'm gonna initiate my Node application. To do that, I will say npm and init-y. And it's gonna create our package.json here. As you can see, it's empty. We are gonna have main.js file here, and if I say yarn add or npm install socket.io, as you can see, it adds our dependency here. Awesome. So what else we are gonna need? We can install nodemon. That because when we make any changes inside our index.js, it's gonna automatically restart our application. So I can write here start and nodemon and index.js, comma here. Of course, we don't have any index.js. Let's create index.js. So if I write here, for example, console log hello, and I will save. If I write here yarn start or npm start, it runs nodemon here and it says hello. If I change here and save again, as you can see, nodemon restarts our application again. So we don't have to start this manually. Okay, perfect. So what I'm gonna do, let's come here and we are gonna be using AS modules or common.js. You can use require or import, whatever you want. Let's do that. I will just copy this and paste here. And if I save, it's gonna give me an error that because we are using AS modules, but our application is not supporting this. To prevent this, you can come here and say type module. I will save. And as you can see, we don't have any more this error. As you can see, it says we can write here any option. Let's write one, and it's gonna be course. And we can write here any URL. with origin, and it's gonna be HTTP localhost and 3000. Why I am doing this? That because we can reach this server inside only our React application, which is localhost 3000. Remember, our application here runs on 3000, so even someone try to reach our socket server, it's just gonna fail. That because we let only this URL. And as you can see, we have a function here. When we connect our socket server, we can do anything inside this function. Let's console log this socket and let's see what we have. Console log and socket. Or let's write here, someone has connected. And I can write this connect function inside. To do that, I will use socket.on, and it's going to be disconnect. This name is important, you cannot change it. And whenever a user disconnects, we are going to write console log, someone has left. Okay, right now we can use it inside our React application. I'm going to create one more terminal here, and this time I'm going to open React application cd client, and we are going to add one more package. Let's come back our documentation. It was our server side, and let's open up client side and installation. And here we can use any CDN. We can directly fetch this socket library, but we are not going to do that. We will just add it to our application. So we need this package. I will copy, and here I will say yarn add and socket.io client. Let's see how we are going to use it. I'm going to click here, and we are going to import our package, and after that, as you can see, we can initiate our socket. Let's do that. By the way, as you remember, it's listening port number 3000 by default. Let's change here. We already used that. It's gonna be 5000, for example. So we can use this port number in our client side. It's not gonna be cart, let's say app. And let's create our function. I will say import IO from socket.io client, and I'm gonna initiate this. Like here, of course, we are gonna use our own server, socket server, localhost and 5000. So let's create here use effect hook. That because we are gonna connect just once. So I will say const socket and IO. It's gonna be localhost and 5000 HTTP, and my dependency will be an empty array. That because it's gonna run just once. And as you can see, someone has connected. If I come here and open second tab, localhost 3000, and as you can see, someone has connected again. If I close this page, someone has left. Let's see what we have inside this socket. Console log. It's gonna be socket. I'm gonna open my console here. And as you can see, we have an object here. And it has an ID. It's really important. We are gonna use this. And connected, disconnected, and other things here, which are not important for now. So what I'm gonna do? We are gonna work with socket events. What I mean by that? For example, when I click this button, we are gonna send an event to our server. We will say, hey, I like this post, please let him know. This is gonna be an event. And our server is gonna take this event and it's gonna send this event to this user. I know it sounds confusing, but when we create our events, you're gonna see how easy to use it. So how we are gonna create and send events? Well, there are some rules for that. For example, inside our socket server. By the way, if you watch my Messenger tutorial, you have already know this slide. I've explained before, but I'm gonna explain again. We are gonna have basically two servers, socket server and client side, which is our React app. And for example, in socket server, if we want to send any event to client, we are gonna use IO key. This function allows us to send any event to client side. And if we want to send this event every online user, we are gonna use emit. And if you want to send this to one client, one specific client, we are gonna use to and inside socket ID, which belongs this specific client, and emit again. Again, we are using IO function here. And if you want to send everyone, emit. If you want to send just one client, to and inside socket ID and emit. Remember, we have socket ID, we console log this. And if we are taking event from client side, from our React application, we are gonna use socket.on. It looks confusing if you don't know anything about socket.io, but after couple usage, after just one application, you are gonna see how easy to use. So don't worry about that. And you don't have to memorize anything. When you need, just come here and check and write your functions. And after a couple example, you're gonna already memorize everything. But for now, you should follow this table. Okay, and what about client side in our React application? In any case, we are gonna use socket function. And if we want to send event to server, we are gonna use emit. If you want to take event from socket server, we are gonna use on. Okay, let's try first event. After the demonstration, you are gonna understand better. So what I want is creating new events. I can delete them. And I'm gonna create new event here. I will say, let's check here. We are in our socket server and we are gonna send event to every client, for example. So we are gonna use IO and emit. After connection, I will say io.emit. And I'm gonna write here my event name. You can write here whatever you want. First event, for example. And let's say, hello, this is test. So how we are gonna take this event inside our React app? Let's check our table again. So I'm gonna open up client side and we are gonna take event from our server. So it means we are gonna use socket on and our event. Let's do that. I will say socket.on and what was the event name? First event. And here we can read our message and we can just console log message. Oops. Let's see. I'm gonna refresh my page and open my console. And as you can see, hello, this is test. And it goes every single user. As you can see, it's really easy. Only thing you should do is writing here event name and your function or message, whatever you want. And remember, if you want to send this to any specific user, it's gonna be IO and to, and it's gonna be socket ID. I will just made up here something like that, and emit and our event again. So how we are gonna know this socket ID? Because if you check here, as you can see, it's just a random string. It's not possible to know this ID. So what can I do? Let's delete here. Basically, I can create online users array here. Let's say online users. It's gonna be an empty array. And whenever any user connects our server, we can update it For example, it was empty. After one connection, we can create any user here. We can say user ID, for example, 1, and socket ID. It's some gibberish string like that. So in this case, if we write here any user ID, it's really easy to find any specific user. We don't have to know socket ID. When we like any specific user's post, for example, Monica, we can use her user ID and we can find her socket ID using this array. It's gonna be John, for example, and it's gonna be Monica. Something like that. We can use this user ID because we already know, or it can be directly username. It can be easier, I think, Monica, and it's gonna be John. Yeah, it's a better idea. I don't wanna confuse you anymore. So we can filter our online users array. We can choose this user. Once we have user, it means we have socket ID also. And basically we can send our messages or notifications or whatever, any event to this specific user. I hope you understood. So let's add our users. I can create my functions here. I will say const add new user. And remember what we are gonna take. We are gonna have username and socket ID. It's gonna come from our client side. And I'm gonna write here a condition. If online users doesn't have any user like that, we can add this unique user. If user and username equals this username, online users and push, and I'm gonna add this user. It's gonna be username and socket ID. Okay, again, if we already have this user inside our online users array, we are not gonna add. If I log in again as John, it's not gonna create any other user. That's because we are already in the array. So I can do the same thing for this connect method. So whenever we leave our application, we are gonna delete this user. Let's say delete user or remove user. And we can just take socket ID. And we can just filter our array. I will say online user equals online user dot filter, and I'm gonna filter this user. If user dot socket ID is not equal our socket ID here. Double like that. And we can take any specific user. As I demonstrate you, we can choose Monica or John. How we are gonna take those users? I will say get one user or get just user. We can use username, and we can find this user using find method. So I will say return online users dot find if it's username equals our username here. Okay, you are gonna understand better soon. I will close here. Firstly, let's add our function here. When we connect to our server, we are gonna add the user. We are gonna take events from client. So we will use socket.on. So I will say socket.on, and let's write here event name, maybe new user. And we are gonna take username from client, and basically we can run this function, add new user function. And remember, we are passing our username and socket ID. I will say username, and remember we have socket here, so it's easy to find our socket ID. It's gonna be just socket.id. So what about here? When we disconnect, I'm just gonna remove my user. Socket.id. It's not an event, be careful, because we are not taking anything from client side. it's just gonna close the browser and we will remove that user. Okay, so if I come here and delete here and send my user to server, let's open up table again. Right now we are in the client side, and only thing we should do is using socket, and we are sending event to server. It means we are gonna use socket.emit. So let's write here after connection. Actually, I can use here maybe use state hook. It's gonna be null at the beginning, and I'm gonna set my socket here. Set socket like that. That's because we are gonna use socket in our navbar also, so we should pass this as prop here. Anyway, we are gonna do this later. So I can create one more use effect here. Use effect, and this time I'm gonna send my user to server. In this case, I will say socket.emit and my event name, which is add new user. What was the name? Okay, just new user. And I'm gonna pass my username, which is user. And my dependency will be socket and user in this case. Okay. So we created our first event, and let's create other ones. To do that, we are gonna use this socket in our navbar. Socket equals socket, and also inside our cards. That's because we are gonna like or comment or share our posts. We are gonna need this socket to send our events. And also we are gonna need our user here. That's because when we send notification to other user, it's gonna know our username. Okay, what else here? I'm checking. I hope everything is okay. So let's open up card component here. We have post here, and it's gonna be socket and user. So basically, I'm gonna create new socket event here. Remember, we have handle notification function. We are just setting like state, but additionally, I'm gonna say socket.emit, and I will create new event, and it's gonna be send notification. So what we are gonna send to socket server? First one will be sender name, and it's gonna be our username. Remember, we are taking from app.js. It's our name. Second will be receiver name, and it's inside our post. Remember, I will say data, and we have username, full name. You can send whatever you want, but I'm gonna use this username. We can use full name also. Post.username. And finally, I'm gonna write here a type, and I'm gonna take this as a parameter here. Type, comma here. Why I'm using type? That's because when we click on like button, it's gonna be type 1. Let's write here function, and I'm gonna copy this, and for comment it's gonna be type 2, and finally for share button it's gonna be type 3. Let's see. Okay, there is an error. Okay, we are running this use effect when socket and user changes, but at the beginning it's null. That means there is no socket. So basically you can write here a condition. If there is a socket, just send this event. Let's try again. Okay, it works. Let's say John. When I click this button, it's gonna send this event, and our server is gonna take this and send to Monica. Only Monica. Let's do that. Let's check our event name. It's going to be send notification. So I can use it here. And I want to check my table again. We are in the socket server and we are going to take event from client. So I will come here and again socket.on. It's going to be event name, and remember what we have here: sender name, receiver name, and finally type. I'm gonna cover them and use function, and I'm gonna send this event to a specific user. Remember, we are using IO and to and socket ID here. And how I'm gonna take this socket ID, we have get user function. So basically I can say const receiver, and I can use this function. It's gonna be receiver name, and it's gonna give us the actual receiver. Right now I can use its socket ID. So I will say receiver dot socket ID, and emit. We are gonna send our event, and let's say get notification, for example. I'm just gonna send sender name and type. Okay, so let's use it in our client side. This time it's not gonna be app, it's not gonna be card, it's gonna be navbar. Remember, we are passing our prop. I will say socket, and I'm gonna create a use effect hook here. Use effect. It's gonna be socket here, our dependency. And let's check here. We are in the client side. We are taking event from server. Socket.on. And event name here. And we are gonna take our data, which includes sender name and type. Oops, data. And I'm gonna create my function here. So what I'm gonna do, I can create new state here, notifications and set notifications. And each time we receive any notification, I can just update that. So let's do that. Const notifications and set notifications. And it's gonna be use state. At the beginning, it's gonna be an empty array. And here, let's set notifications, and I can set my data like that. Spread operator and notifications and data. Basically, it takes every object inside this array. But if I do that, we have to write here one more dependency, and it's gonna cause an infinite loop. To prevent this, what I can do, I can delete here. I can take previous object inside notifications, and I can spread that. So if you want to, let's check our notifications. I will say console log and notifications, localhost 3000, and I will take this here like that. I'm gonna refresh here, and I'm gonna log in. John and Monica. Okay, I'm Monica right now, and I'm gonna like this post. Of course, I should open console first. As you can see, there is nothing. I will like, and as you can see, it updates. Sender Monica type 2. If I click on comments, there is one more, Monica type 2, and if I share, there is one more, type 3. And it's that easy. So how I'm gonna show those notifications? I can create one more div here. So I'm gonna come here. After those icons, I'm gonna create new div. It's gonna be notifications. And I can map through my array, which is notifications, and it's gonna be map. And for each notification, I'm gonna show different div. But I'm not gonna write this here. Instead, I'm gonna create somewhere here. That because for each type, we are gonna return different value. For 1, we are gonna say Monica liked your post. For 2, Monica shared your post, something like that. So let's create our function, display notification. And we are gonna have sender name and type. And let's create here an action. And I can write here my condition. I will say if type equals 1, action will be liked. Else if type equals 2, action will be, what was that, commented. And else if it's 3, action will be shared. Of course, you can write here switch case block, or you can just use ifs without else. And finally, I'm gonna return something, and it's gonna be a span. And let's give class name maybe. It's gonna be notification, and I'm gonna write here sender name and action and your post. Oops, backtick is here. End of the text. Okay. Monica liked your post. Monica shared your post. It's gonna be like that. So we can use it here. I will save, and I can change their styles. I will come here, and for notifications, remember it's our container. I will say position absolute, and top will be 50 pixels. That because our navbar is 50 pixels, remember, here. And it's gonna start from after 50 pixels here. And I can say right 0, and background color white, and text color will be black, and font weight will be 300. Okay, it's not here, something is wrong. Oh, I forgot sending this notification. Okay, it's here. It's gonna be display flags, and flags direction will be column, like that. And I will give some padding maybe. Okay, as you can see, we forgot again position relative for the parent. Okay, awesome. For each notification, it's gonna be padding 5, and font size will be a little bit smaller, like that. Awesome. What we can do here, we can hide this notification still, and when we click this button, we can open up again. To do that, we can create one more use state, and it's gonna be open, set open, like that. At the beginning, it's gonna be false, and when I click those buttons, we are gonna open. So basically, I can create my condition here. If it's open, just show me these notifications. When I click this icon, I can set my state again. Let's say on click. Oops, curly brackets first. And my function, and I'm gonna say set open and opposite of open. If it's false, it's gonna be true. If it's true, it's gonna be false. And for others, this icon and this one, we don't need for them, but anyway, I will click, and as you can see, they are here. It shows twice when we refresh our apps. John and Monica. I will like this post and comment, and they are here. Awesome. So what else I can do? I can delete those counters for message and settings. And for these notifications, I can write here one more condition, and it's gonna be notifications and length. And one more thing I can do. After these notifications, I can create here a button, and it's gonna be mark as read. And I will give class name. It's gonna be notification button, something like that. Let's change it here, but first let's see. Of course I should say first. Okay, it's here, but I can change this a little bit with 80%. I will give some padding and margin top 10 pixels. Like that is enough, I think. And when I click this button, basically I'm just gonna remove all our notifications. So I will say on click, it's gonna be handle read function, const handle read, and I will say set notifications. Again empty array, and set open, it's gonna be false. We are gonna close our model. By the way, I can write here a condition. I'm gonna say if notifications dot length bigger than 0. That because if I don't do that, even if it's 0, let me do that, John. As you can see, it shows 0. But if I save this, it's not gonna show up. Awesome. Let's try again. I'm gonna refresh. Monica. By the way, each time you should refresh your application, otherwise it's gonna show up twice or 3 times maybe. So I'm gonna like and comment. As you can see, it's here. I'm gonna mark as read, and we just removed all notifications. Awesome. As you can see, it's really easy. We are not gonna do this for messages, but you have already learned there is nothing complex. Only thing you should do is creating new notification, event, and it's gonna be send text maybe, and this time it's not gonna be type, it's gonna be text, and we are gonna send this text to specific user. And that's all. Seriously, if you come here and say let's delete them and let's make this text, for example, and I'm gonna write here sender name, and here let's write our message. I will say text, and of course we should change our notification. It's gonna be get text. What was the name? Send text, and get text. It's gonna be get text. Okay, and if I go to cart, and instead of send notification, I'm gonna say send text, and our text will be, let's say, hello, this is chat message. And that's all. Let's try. Refresh, and here I'm gonna click, and let's see. As you can see, Monica, hello, this is chat. Awesome. It works like that. Of course, you can create your inputs and chat UI, and you can send your messages like that. I will click here. As you can see, right now it's here. Hello, this is chat message. Awesome, it works. By the way, I clicked here, but we set light. To prevent this, I can say here, if type is 1. In this case, if it's like button, we are gonna set our like. And that's all. I hope you liked it. It's that easy. If you want to learn more complex application, you can check my Messenger tutorial also. And I saw many comments about these notifications, and I just wanted to make something minimal like this application. And in the future, we are gonna create an independent chat application, and it's gonna have all awesome features. Okay, that's all. If you learned something new today, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And you can support me using the join button or the link in the description below. Don't forget following Lama Dev social media accounts. I hope I will see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.